Democratic State Representative Venton Jones of Dallas. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you for having me today.
You bet. So before we get started and talk about the controversy surrounding Texas A&M University, I wanted to ask you about the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
What were your thoughts when you saw that yesterday?
Well, I think it's horrific that this violence is happening. And my first and foremost, my condolences to the family. This is not something that any family needs to experience, and I think that is exactly why me and my colleagues have been advocating to tone down this political rhetoric that we are seeing in this country, because if history is any teacher, we've seen how this rhetoric turns into violence, and this is just another example of that. And I think that the nation is mourning this violence that we continue to see that's picking up right now because of just the tone of our political discourse right now.
So, I mean, just as far as a solution is concerned, everybody just needs to tone it down, or what else do you think needs to happen?
I think that it's not just about toning it down, it's about understanding the diversity of this country and how we shouldn't be just putting one issue or one extreme issue against another. And particularly for this issue, we do need control on weapons that are doing this kind of harm, because no one should be going to a college campus or a political rally or anything and be shot by these assault style weapons that now anyone can be able to have access to, especially in the state of Texas.
You're in the public arena. Ideas are exchanged whether people like them or not. So how do you make the public arena safer so that, what you say, you're not going to become a target of violence and somebody else, et cetera?
I think that there's much work to be done. But first and foremost, we have to be working on solutions together. Both parties, both sides, anyone who cares about this topic of keeping our nation safe, our children, elected officials, any individual who just want to live their lives just like anyone else. And I think that that's a very important and key and critical conversation. Now, also, when we look at the rhetoric that is going on, especially rhetoric that advocates for gun violence, we have to understand the consequences that has. And I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that I have a true opinion on how to address it, because as a black man, as an LGBTQ person, I've seen nothing but violence as far like to leaders that had a different opinion than some people in this country. And I think that's what we really have to dedicate our work to, is addressing this so that it happens to no one. No family should have to lose a father, a mother, a family member to gun violence. And I think that is the key issue that we have to continue to drive home. And this, no matter who it happens to, is not acceptable. And we have to make sure that we come up with real solutions, not political talking points, to address this, or it will continue to happen, unfortunately, until we get a grasp on this.
So let's talk about this controversy at Texas A&M University surrounding this child literature class and this professor, and the complaint that gender identity was a part of it. And the university said that they ultimately fired the professor. First, what do you make of all this?
Well, it's disappointing once again that we are here navigating a conversation about Texas A&M, my alma mater, and perpetuating a conservative political agenda in our public institutions. And so this is yet another example of that taking place, to where this did not come from just the campus community. We had a lawmaker implementing a political agenda to be able to get this individual fired. They did not break any laws. They were exercising their academic freedom to teach the curriculum that they need to educate our students. And this still happened. Not only did we look at firing a professor, but also demoting leadership at the institution. And so how many of our academic institutions and the individuals there to coming to teach and to learn there have to be attacked just to perpetuate a conservative political agenda, an indoctrination of just conservative policies or nothing else, or you are in danger of being fired or removed from your position or being put in an unwelcoming campus environment in a public school.
We spoke with Representative Harrison, and he told me he thought that the school had improperly placed the student in a position of having her civil rights violated for essentially being invited to leave the class instead of voicing her opposition to what was being taught. What do you say to that?
I think the student had an opportunity to voice their opposition, and that's exactly what they did. And the faculty had an opportunity to say and said that they were exercising their rights to academic freedom. But once you become a disruption to class, anyone should be removed from the class for that reason so that our students can continue to be educated. And so there is a process, a due process that could take place if a student or an administrator really felt that that was happening. But what did we do? We asked for that individual to be fired immediately because of the political games that are being played right now at our institutions of higher education. Right now, the only law that's in place is the removal of departments of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is also ridiculous. But there were concerns that were expressed on the House floor by many members, including myself, that this would happen, that there would never be enough. And unless you are a conservative thinker and that you are in lockstep with the president, it's getting to the point that no institution in our state is safe for individuals to be able to have their freedoms just like we all want to be able to live, work, and play in our communities.
When the student is on this video, you hear the student challenging the professor, and she said, you know, this violates President Trump's executive order about just two genders, you know, the topic of the curriculum of the class that the professor was bringing up. Mm-hmm. What do you say to that?
Well, the president has the ability to express and create any executive order that they choose to implement. What's happening with this is that this executive order is being used to perpetuate hatred, to perpetuate racism and misinformation in our state. We've seen it with the bathroom bills, we've seen it with other bills, and we're seeing it exactly with this situation because, again, based on the executive order, what prevents this professor from being able to raise issues up regarding LGBTQ individuals in their coursework? And so what I see is an ongoing attack to remove the very presence of LGBTQ people everywhere in our state, in our bathrooms, in our schools, and to just disappear in silence. And that is absolutely unacceptable because when I look at my experiences at Texas A&M, I experienced things from every spectrum, and that's what really gave me a full rounded education. I would be fearful right now to go to Texas A&M. I would not send my children to Texas A&M University, and many Texans have expressed that concern, not only with Texas A&M University, but with all of our state schools.
Why?
Because it is not creating a fair and unbiased and equal playing field for education. Our public institutions are really supposed to be the hallmark of those pillars, especially a place like Texas A&M University. And so, yes, parents are not sending their children to work there. We're not having professors that are going there because if they are black or brown or they have experience counter to the current administration, not only the president of the United States, but the governor and right-wing Republicans, they could be fired from those very institutions. And that is just completely appalling and really against the academic freedoms that we protect and should be protecting in our state right now.
What do you make of the professor's attorney? She came out and spoke about professors taught this course for many years and was never told to, if I remember correctly, was never told to alter the description of the course, etc.
It did not become an issue until a Republican lawmaker politicized the issue until the governor called and demanded that that professor and other faculty be removed from their positions. And so again, this is not about creating an academic environment where our Texan children can thrive in and to be able to grow and have a well-rounded experience of what does a state that represents 31 million people look like. This is about a political agenda and political pressure that is being used and exerted on our public institutions, and it is very much so illegal. And I am grateful that the professor has sought legal representation to take this issue to court, because it is a violation of that professor's rights, and it's a violation of the rights that so many students and parents have when they send their students to these campuses to be educated.
You've written a letter to the president of Texas A&M University, and you have other Democratic lawmakers sign this. What's your message to the president?
I think that the president must have messaging that's not just from conservative members, and I'm not doing this for political reasons. I'm doing this as a former student of Texas A&M University who continues during my legislative tenure to see attacks on that very university that is preventing my constituents from attending a university that they have all their rights to be able to attend. That they are now seeing a university and our university systems being weaponized in a way that moves a political agenda and not an agenda that is based on the people that represent this state and that represent the student body that attends institutions like Texas A&M. I think what's very telling when we talk about the growth of minority populations is the current state of the African American population at Texas A&M University. It was about 2% when I was there in 2006, and it remains that way. And I think that we have to, instead of creating opportunities to take populations, diverse populations, away from our institutions, we should be doing the exact opposite versus condemning words like diversity, equity, and inclusion that we should be celebrating right now and helping to make our state more diverse and more welcoming to economic opportunities. And our institutions of higher education are really the gate to building economic opportunities in our states. And so it's alarming to see so many individuals having to choose between other institutions to be able to attend, because that's just one more great mind that we lose that can contribute to the economic mobility of the state.
And so you're saying the population, despite the growth in specifically the Black community in Texas, you're saying that Texas A&M's Black student population has not gone up with the rest of the with the population of the Black community.
It has not.
So why is that?
Well, I think that there are a multitude of reasons, especially when you look at a place like Texas A&M University, which already was rooted in a conservative background. You literally have buildings that were named after individuals that advocated lynching, that advocated racism, that advocated segregation in our state and in our country. And so versus addressing those wrongs, we're doubling down on that. We're creating that space once again by saying if you are a faculty member and you even mention LGBTQ people, you can lose your job. If you are a student wanting to put an event on campus to represent either your background or to be able to educate other individuals about your culture, you can't do that unless you are in line, lockstep with ultra-right conservative principles. And so where has that worked? And how does that work for bringing in diverse populations of not only African American people, but Latino people, LGBTQ people, and other people that represent this state? This state is not just represented by conservative individuals, and individuals who are conservative and who are in power, like lawmakers, like the governor, and like even the comptroller, who is a former conservative lawmaker, is now in this position using this position to be able to implement their political agenda versus the agenda that is in lockstep with serving all of our students, not just some of them, in our public schools.
And what do you say to conservatives like Representative Harrison who say, look, our kids have been indoctrinated for years by liberal professors, etc. What do you say to that?
The only indoctrination that is taking place is ultra-right conservative principles. If you do not act in lockstep with our message, you are not welcome in public institutions. And so that not only harms our faculty and our students, but also the administrators who are in the middle of this, who have to comply or at the call of the governor, which this did happen, have their funding threatened. And so the only indoctrination that I'm seeing are from right-wing conservatives threatening the livelihoods of Texans, the education of our students, and really the operation of how we run our state schools in order to be lockstep with their principles, not this radical left-wing agenda that is not taking place in this state.
Last question. What do you want to see happen next? You talked a little bit about your letter to the president, but what else ultimately do you want to see happen?
Well, as it relates to Texas A&M University, this is the beginning, because I will not run and I will not stand down. Texas A&M and Aggieland is a place that I have love for, and I feel that anyone, no matter where you come from, your economic background, or even your racial background, should be limited in being able to attend a place like Texas A&M University or any of our public schools. So I will be meeting with President Welsh. I will be meeting with the leadership of Texas A&M, and I will get to the bottom of this, because we just cannot have the voice of one individual overshadow the will of 31 million individuals. And so I will continue to fight on this issue for our public schools. I will continue to fight for diverse populations to be able to attend those schools, and make sure that leadership is aware of that, so that they are not just steamrolling their conservative principles and pushing this political indoctrination that we're seeing in every space in our public spaces. It's happening in our schools. It's happening in our hospitals and our doctors' offices. It's happening in our libraries. It's happening everywhere in our society, of pushing this ultra-right conservative doctrine. And that does not even represent the majority of Texans. And so one last thing I will say that I would do is to continue to mobilize our state. And if we are in a place to where we don't want to continue to see this, we need to have our voices heard at the ballot box, because this is where the rubber meets the road on the issues that impact average, everyday Texans. Whether we talk about our economy, our schools, or all these things, it's all connected to how we vote. And so I'm going to make sure to get out and make sure that our voters have their voices heard, so that we can get new leadership that acts not only for ultra right-wing conservatives, but for all Texans that desperately need representation right now in Austin.
State Representative Venton Jones of Dallas, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.